In the top right of Solaris in this game 2 of a best-of-3 series, it is Team Liquid's Clem. And on the bottom left, we have the blue Protoss Creator. Who I assume is on a team, but I'm actually not sure. Creator not having the best of times, feels like recently. If I get to the correct one. And has certainly expressed frustration with this particular matchup. He does that decent amount. He's on Team NV, by the way. He does that a decent amount, and then will still have really good games versus Terran, which doesn't discredit his frustrations. It's just that it doesn't necessarily limit him. But it is something to account for, I suppose, when he goes up against one of the best Terrans in the world. Which he would do quite a bit, being in Korea and all that. But doesn't seem to bother him in the first game, and it's actually Clem who continues to have the most struggles versus Protoss. We're getting to that point to which it seems that it is a legitimate issue. It might not just be a MaxPax thing, and even if it was, it still is something that MaxPax is found consistently. So that's something to look into. But he also did lose against Estrella in surprising one-sided fashion. He is down on his last life versus Creator, so even though as a whole, you talk about the frustrations of the Protoss side of things in this matchup, Clem seems to be having trouble with his own. And this is at a point in which I would figure that his TvP was basically fine. You know, it's not the highlight matchup for him. TvZ still probably is, especially with some epic games versus other Zergs. And then there's his TvT, which doesn't really give you epic games as much as he just shows utter dominance in it, winning 5 minutes or less in many of his TvTs with his insane micro and seemingly good understanding of the Cyclone meta currently. It is TvP that has fallen a little bit behind. Now, overall, he's still a very good player, and overall, his kind of overall weights class, I guess, can be seen as higher than a lot of other players. But yeah, Protoss might just be a little bit of a sticky point for him. Maybe. Very nice message. Thank you. So, we have Creator going for the Nexus in the Twilight Council. Clem has gone into a factory after a 1-Rax expand. Very safe with that bunker coming up, as well as a Reaper opener. So this hasn't given him the quickest production, but he does have 3 units, and he's actually playing very aggressively. So this must be, I mean, knowledge off of their previous engagements. Not that you can't somewhat predict this. It's kind of funny interaction with the speed zones. It's not that you can't predict this from Protoss players in general. To be so certain and to go for a Reaper opener, hold the Reaper at home, 2 Marines, then Reactor as well. I mean, that's not the most common strict opener that we've seen. It's more like Reaper into Marine and then Reactor, I guess. Or even a Marine into Reactor. Although Clem almost always goes for the Reaper, I suppose. But the point is, like, that Adept almost was punished, but Creator actually did end up saving it. 1 Helene was produced from the factory to help out the Reaper bypass the security we got set up. We got a wall on the main base, unless the Reaper can do a hop-up. Hoppity-poppity, hoppity-poppity. Doesn't have to. The Helene got in the natural. That was a wide open wall right there. The Helene not going to go for the scout in the main, however. Doesn't really have to. Stay to the natural and manage to kill 1 probe, right? I believe that was the Hellions. Kill, but it's all Twilight Council, Gateway, and a Robo. Gateway as well added onto that. Get the Reaper Scout in the main. There could feasibly be a 4th Gateway, I suppose. No, actually, there could. Well, there's a pylon. I guess the 4th Gateway could be, but when the 3rd Nexus comes down, I kind of confirm it. We're gonna get to a very similar build, regardless of their intention to 4-gate or not. The only difference would be if he was really scared it was a 4-gate, perhaps that 2nd bunker would be coming down. It is nuts. Medevac drop heading to the main is a Widow Mine and 6 Marines. That pylon did not scout it as it is still building. Stalkers are in position. There's not very many of them. No shield battery either. Theoretically, especially if the Widow Mine actually pops off on a Stalker, Clem could actually tackle this particular force, but probably not really going to bother. Might just hold that up into the corner. wait for the actual attack. Creator not spending very much on the production of units. Goes fairly quickly into that third Nexus, but then also more so quickly into the technology. So the 3-gate looks like more was a defensive gesture almost than it was like Max Packs. You know, he always gets the Warp Prism. He always goes for a little bit of aggression. Maybe he doesn't warp in as much. Maybe he does, but always the Warp Prism, not Creator. He's going to go directly into the Colossus. So that was Robotics Bay, then third Nexus. The third Nexus is not as fast as it could have been. The Creator is going to be solidly set up to get into the Colossus mid-game. Probably have 3 when maybe a lot of the Protosses will still be working with 2. Creator has done a decent amount of scouting, I guess enough. His observer's trying to see exactly when the push-out happens. No time soon. Stem not even halfway done. Raven, tank set up in the main base. Production on the way. Everything a Terran should be doing is being done. We got ourselves a bit of a gentleman's TvP. Marines do unload into a barren main base. No defenses there. The Stalkers went on the aggression. Wouldn't mind pops off rather ineffectively, and the medevac almost got bopped by the recalled Stalkers. It does successfully hide to that corner, and will possibly now team up with the main push. Shield battery was a target for a little while. It could be vulnerable in the future. Ditto on that pylon then, after the shield battery's done. But by that time, the Robotics Bay will have finished its thermal lance. The Forge probably done on at least its +1 upgrade, and it's actually still more of a concern that this thing will kill a bunch of probes than necessarily the technology. I feel like we saw such quick PVTs earlier today that I'm almost shocked that we're getting into a point where there's not a heavy amount of evaluation necessary. I don't have to get the lines connecting the photographs and whatnot to try and figure it out. No, it's pretty much just a straight-up macro game. Auto turret trying to kill some probes. Kills 3. Kills 4. Let's get auto turret harassment. And Hallucination just got the confirmation on the third CC, which is probably the biggest thing to confirm. Whether or not they're continuing to build tanks might also be another thing, but really the third CC or 5 racks, so we're going to get SCV pulled here, something like the third CC is seen. So Creator grabbing a 4th Nexus, very appropriately timed. More production for him. Templar Archives got charge on the way, and we are going to be at 3 Colossus momentarily. We'll see if Creator adds on Immortals or Disruptors. Feels like Immortals are all the rage, but then sometimes they are. And you're like, oh, hot damn, Immortals are really good. And then sometimes you're like, were Immortals in that army? Are we sure? Let's see which one comes out here. Warp Prism is on the way, though, and that's pretty critical. Again, opening up the option for the Protoss to either go for kind of a more faux attack, a fake one on the front, not necessarily looking to end the game with a Warp Prism harass in the main or elsewhere, or we could have a straight-up attack trying to find the Terran a little vulnerable, especially if Clem was opting into trying to be aggressive. He picked up 2 medevacs, he was sending the rest of the army forward, then it would be a perfect time to try and get that Warp Prism to do something. But actually, Clem is playing quite cautious, so it looks like he's probably playing a little bit from earlier today and the Protoss lessons that he learned there, and then also from their first game. And so typically Terran players, and particularly Clem, you know, aggressive, medevac drop, micro, all that good stuff, would usually try and do a little bit of a push out, a little bit of a pokey poke, and then we just had absolutely nothing besides this drop. Raven harassment and 1 Marine actually going ham. So shout out to these guys, but basically nothing. 6 probes go down. That wasn't supposed to happen. But basically nothing, because the entire army really is back at home, pre-siege, center tower, bunker, pre-split. I mean, this is Clem making sure that he will get maxed out. And he's very close to it. Those ghosts are out, but not on the front lines. The tanks are here to help out against the Colossus, which we're looking to abuse their range right there. That's what they were trying to do, because the Viking count wasn't particularly high. And that's why just 1 tank, actually, is extremely helpful to kind of bridge that gap. 2nd tank didn't even get a shot. 4th CC also being as quick as this. I mean, this clearly was a more patient game that Clem wanted to play. And we've seen this adaptation as he's gone on some Protoss loss streaks. Now, his loss streaks are like, you know, 4 losses in a row, and he's upset with himself. But nonetheless, you're driving for perfection. That is a problem. And we've seen him even adapt mid-series, where he was getting bopped by Max Packs 2-0. In the 3rd game, we saw heavy Turtle Terran Actually, almost an insane, I think, because that was a game where he went and didn't even attack, basically. He got the Liberators and whatnot. Like, very defensive for Clem. Almost like a old school Spirit instead. And then he actually was able to bring back the series. This was a while ago, but it does stick out in my mind. And so Clem seems to have adopted that yet again. Is it a crutch? Perhaps this will be exploited in the future as more Protosses pick up on it? I mean, possibly. But when he has so many hot days, just destroying Protosses and all of their hopes and dreams, I don't think it's something that you can really depend on. And by the time you get to a point where Clem is actually acknowledging that you're playing better that day, you're probably just shocked. You're like, oh, shit, what is he doing now? Oh god, oh my god. But anyway, he really is going into a very late game scenario. Clem's maxed out 4 bases, adding on a bunch of extra command centers, 2-2 upgrades, 70% done. Fusion core on the way, gonna go into Liberators, trying to get to that perfect Terran army. Creator could have played around more with trying to beat bop between the bases, right? That's what Protoss do when it's a little bit more of an action-packed game, a little bit more of a tug-of-war, is that they'll eventually gain more of the map control. The Terran kind of has to play defensive. Really looking forward to getting those Liberators and hiding behind planetaries, and then the Protoss will mass. They'll expand, they'll mass, they'll trade. A little bit of a Zerg factor. But there is the other option, especially in a game which has been so passive, ultimately, and that option is to go into Stargates. Now again, if the game is a little more back and forth, and the Terran has shown that they want to get something done, there is a possible opening weakness on the side of the Protoss who do opt for the Stargate. So if you think of some really epic battles of like Clem Showtime, where Showtime's barely holding on with Mass Playing Stalker Disruptor and has gotten the edge and is going for the momentum push, but then can't quite break the planetary, and then Clem's adding on Liberators bit by bit, and then Showtime has to take a breather because a base trade is threatened, so he recalls back home. At no point does Showtime feel comfortable going into Stargates in that type of game. So many resources, so much supply that wouldn't actually affect the game. So the carriers pop out, and even that then, because they had to wait for interceptors. So this is really something you're only going to see, I would say, in a game like this, where it just screamed defensive turtle macro game. Otherwise, this huge gap of supply, I think, does injure the Protoss more often. That's why they're typically so scared to go into it. And so we see a couple of games as well where it definitely feels like the Protoss threw. I know that was a highlight for a little while, a couple months ago. Why didn't the Protoss just go into Stargates? How stupid is he? Like, it's a little more nuanced than that. Thank you, Cosmic, for the 2 months. Appreciate it. As we got ourselves a long, drawn-out PvT. Now, Clem not actually waiting for Liberators, so moves out already. I would say, honestly, a lot of times a game is set up like this, regardless of who the Terran is, Spirit, Here Marine, Clem. When it's set up like this, been no interaction prior to the 6 space being done, the extra orbitals, you know, all that good stuff. I would say you actually are going to be waiting a little bit more for that Liberator push. The fact that we're actually already getting action prior to Liberators being a thing, and in fact not really even going Liberators, has maybe shocked Crater as well. Wasn't quite prepared for this, and is going to lose access to that Rich Vespian Geyser, or not. I mean, it seems like it's a thing, but okay. Main base is actually under pressure as well, as we got plenty of upgraded bio units with now Caduceus Reactor done, so the Medivacs are, well, full on energy anyway, but we got Stargates going down, we got just a barely enough amount of Protoss units taking care of this, but then back on the main engagement, those Vikings are kicking butt. The carriers, not properly protected, not going to be healed up by the shield body overcharge, because 13 Vikings with +2 were shooting them down, and Creator, while he doesn't get bopped straight up because of this transition, I think was kind of caught mid-transition. Was probably thinking that he had 30 seconds to 60 seconds more where the Terran's like, oh, I need Liberators, I need to feel confident to actually go out on the map. Boom, suddenly this still very mobile army was mobilizing. I mean, the drop in the main at this late in the game is kind of a surprise to me as well. And you do not have your entire army ready to go with the SAG defense that you thought you would have, with the Storms ready, with the Archons prepared, with the carrier count up to a certain amount, and the Interceptors flying around with that +2 weapons. He doesn't even have +2. He's only just started it. So I do think he was caught a little bit mid-transition there. Good on Clem to strike when the iron's hot, I suppose. But it has calmed down. Crater making up for the lost Nexus with a double expand at this point. Raven still going strong. Shout out to that Raven. Never gonna die, apparently, despite the option of carriers. Nukes have been coming down. I did not just completely not realize the nuke went down. It did. It was like a force field nuke, I guess you would call it. It's literally meant to stop the Protoss army from interacting on this particular choke. And we might see another one. Disruptors get thrown out, kind of hastily, actually, so all 3 without ammo at this point. Vikings still sharking around for any amount of carriers that will show their face, or that one Colossus. Ripperino. That's 20 Vikings with +2 attack. Working on +3 and an armor as well. EMP is looking to take care of these High Templars, but Creator is giving as good as he gets as far as the micro dynamic between the two. EMP is nonetheless still going to go down. There's just so many ghosts, right? 10 in the entire army right now. So, as much as Creator's been trying to feed back and snipe these things, it's really not working out, and he's in a lot of trouble. Looks like he's kept a lot of his army off to the right side. He's predicting that multi-pronged attack again, but it's not happening. He is going to need his full army, I think, on the front lines, and there it goes now, but now it's also tucked into a corner, and a Ghost is trying to slap down a nuke. You got Storms being planted on a Ghost under a Medivac and a tank, which is usually less than ideal, but it does get the ball rolling. DTs, I thought were going to go for a run by, now coming in to go for an attack. I don't know if they have Shadow Stride. I don't believe they do, so they're not going to get that full surround. And that's actually very good news for Clem, who was possibly going to get surrounded. Instead, he'll be able to retreat. The Vikings are alive but injured. EMPs take care of the DTs, no problem. And without the Disruptors with shots, there's really not that much of a Protoss army to take on, you know, Sim City and planetaries and reinforcements, you know, the whole shebang, all right? It's not going to be in the game right here. Those Vikings, now extra speedy thanks to the patch and the acceleration zone, just jumped on top of those carriers, and Creator's army was like, whatever, man, not our job. I don't know about that. I think it was. The Vikings do still have 2 carriers to take on, and frankly, using that choke is not going to work out for Clem anyways, unless it's defensively. And those Liberators siege up on those chokes was beautiful. Tons of extra orbitals is very bad news for Creator if he lets the planetary get up and running, and here we go, there's one of them. He's going to try and stand strong as Creator now moves his sights onto it, but the SCVs are repairing. The building upgrades are not done, actually, but the planetary will nonetheless stand. Aggressive playing forward, taking out 2 Liberators, 3 Liberators actually. The Vikings underneath at least a little bit of that Archon shot, but it is going to be enough of a Terran army to deflect that particular push. Clem also not purely dependent on this one base in case it does get bopped. He has another base at the bottom right, an orbital, in fact. He's trying to get away with it, sneaky, and he was successful. That's also where he's mule dropping and trying to get the gas ASAP, so in case it is found out, he won't have to worry that he's missed an opportunity to mine from it. Creator has almost fully transitioned back into a non-Skytoss army. Those carriers have really not worked out for him on the whole, I suppose. Maybe mobility is going to be the ticket here. Clem trying to react, trying to split, and trying to siege up units when possible is forced to do a lot of actions, but he is holding on. Those Vikings are now at this point feeling awfully useless, and there we go. The landed Vikings going to try and help out against Archons and Stalkers and Disruptors, oh my, but it is going to be good enough. But as the Vikings land, the carriers will arrive. The carriers actually are going to be shot down by the Vikings, which lift just in time. But in fact, the carriers will not go down. That was not enough Vikings. They weren't healthy enough either, but it is Creator's overall supply that is in the dumpster. That was so difficult to call on the side of the commentator, but also on the side of the players, because the units were all types of spread around. I went Italian there for a second. But they were all types of spread around. Suddenly, the Protoss or the Zerg trying to think they overwhelm the Terran. 20 Marines suddenly gather up together. Then you're like, oh shit, I'm going to get chased down. And that's kind of what happened there. Creator thought that, I think legitimately, that he had a chance to move into that natural, so he kept pushing the issue, kept rallying forward, kept trying to actually engage. But the actual amount of units was kind of deceiving. There are some to the left of that building, to the right of that building, in the bunker, behind the bunker, reinforcing, obviously, with Defender's advantage. Vikings lifting and landing and trying to determine what exactly that's contributing to the fight. The Liberator zones, not actually visible, as that was just too much shit to watch. I'm sure also played a part. And it was just looking at the supply that really was telling the tale. Clem might have even panicked momentarily before he looked at his own supply and went, oh, that's actually pretty healthy. Let me just get these all on the front line. And now it's all tied up 1-1. On the bottom left of Hecate is Clem. In the top right, we have Creator. I don't know what happened in game 1, and I'm sad about that, but game 2 was a humdinger. We eventually got to the action-packed phase. Just took 14 minutes. And I would say that Clem did get kind of a surprise knock on the jaw of Creator. Creator was almost assuredly, I don't want to speak for him, but was almost assuredly thinking they needed a little bit more time. That he very possibly might be the one to first aggress even though he was adding on Stargates, and that takes a very long time, and capital ships, and it's very expensive. It's possible that a lot of Terrans, like I said, would be waiting until they had Liberators to actually move out in the map. So they'd have a very nice, safe feeling. These Liberators make you feel really strong. But that was not Clem's intention. His Liberators came out almost last second. They were instrumental to some of the defenses prior to that final battle where it was very heavily in favor of Clem supply-wise towards the end. We had a couple of them appearing on chokes and a couple of them appearing next to the planetaries and forcing the blink forward, right? Like, Liberators are a pain in the butt. But they weren't very quick for such a game that leaped forward into the late game. They weren't the emphasis, where I can guarantee if you watched a TvP 2 years ago with Spirit, for instance, Spirit's just still the go-to guy when it comes to defensive, long TvPs, even though he's changed his tune. You would absolutely have seen a game start like that, get into that 4cc at that time, get into a maxed out army, Protoss decides, you know what, you're not going to do anything. Because you're Spirit, and you're going into a bunch of extra orbitals. You're not going to do anything until you get to enough Liberators. And if I catch you while you're still building your Liberator count, then I'm never even going to try and be on the defense. I'm going to try and kill you. Only if I screw up versus your Liberator and you see a moment where we actually do anything. And then hell. We know there's plenty of times where Spirit would even try and go to battlecruisers. Or that Maru game. Try to go into battlecruisers. That is possible. But Clem kind of twisted the narrative a little bit by attacking with a maxed out non-Liberator army, so it was also more mobile. It was more mobile, and it was more inclined to straight up defeat a kind of budding Skytoss army. If the Liberators are there, Liberators are generally not what you want against the Skytoss. I know there's clips of Interceptors going down. Yeah. But it's generally not. It's really to help you against that ground army. But Creator was clearly caught in a really awkward moment where he was like gathering his army, his Intercept still building, his carriers were split up, his production was shot when he was not expecting that at all, and I think that offset Creator a little bit. And then when he did manage to finally push in to try and win the game, there might have been some misconception as to how well he was doing. I certainly had one. Thank you, Renegade, for that raid, for covering the games that weren't being covered. Because Creator otherwise was back on to 7 bases, I want to say. Maybe 6 or 7 bases. And if he hadn't full-on 100% committed, he would never have gotten into a point where he was 50 supply down without an ability to escape. But he did. So I think he thought there was something there, and it just wasn't. Now Creator is changing things up by being very aggressive, first and foremost, with the triple gateway attack, proxy gate near Clem's third. Clem doesn't know about this. Clem has no scouting. The Reaper was blocked out from the main base, so didn't see the lack of technology. But the double-double Cyclone, the double-double, it's a pretty good opener as far as early game defense goes. The Cyclone remains a wonderful defensive tool. The factory in general being really the basis of a lot of early game Terran defense. The Cyclones, though, are glass cannons. So if this is nothing but Stalkers, and it is with one little Zealot, there's a possibility that Clem isn't microing. And where the hell are all 4 Cyclones? They'd split up, actually. He did not know what his opponent was doing, so the possibility of an Oracle was there. Now he comes in, though, with 4 Cyclones. Kind of more so surprising Creator. The 2 Cyclones in the natural are injured but alive, and that third one is going to survive. Some nice micro. Creator trying to return the favor micro-wise, as far as pulling back the injured units, but simply does not have the quantity that he needs to overpower the 3 remaining Cyclones and a decent number of Marines, really. They are out-microed by Stalkers, but the SCV pool could have happened. The Cyclones are alive, I think is really the most important thing, and the continued aggression here from Creator isn't, I think, getting what he wants. At the end of the day, he's either trading or doing worse than Clem. Although maybe Clem is a little overeager here. Now all his Marines are stimmed into one-shot territory, so that's not great. Clem being overzealous. I mean, that is kind of him, isn't it? But I think they're both having moments of overzealousness that is still, again, ultimately not favoring Creator. Creator is getting to Blink, and he is getting to a third Nexus, so he's not just totally all in with this build. But as far as the ease of transition, at this point, the Terran is producing what they'll be producing. He was supply blocked. The Protoss is the one that has to be careful to get kind of a critical mass, and then make sure that they don't open up a green light so that the Terran immediately counterattacks, and then has to worry about positioning their units against the eventual medevac drops, and then has to worry about the actual quality of its units, because charge isn't done, the zealot count isn't very high. I mean, bio is just building up bio. Terran's so easy, why don't you win with it all the time? And the supply blocks... biggest thing that's hurting Clem, actually, because he got supply blocked twice. He's still kind of supply blocked, but he is building medevacs. And Creator has managed to gain a 10-worker lead. You can see in the resources loss, he just didn't win out there. A little bit of delayed mining contributes. The Cyclones losing their value over time contributes. It's not the worst game Creator's ever played. I can guarantee you that, but not a super promising one. It seems like he's going heavy into the Zealots. He is on 3 gases, not 2, so it's not all Zealots all day long, but it is certainly heavy on the Zealots first and foremost. Ideally, Clem over-aggresses into a Zealots round. Creator takes the map control, and then can transition safely at that point, but if only everything worked out so perfectly. It often does not. Plenty of things go wrong, including Widow Mines, which aren't in the field yet. Oh, nope, sorry, spoke too soon. 2 Widow Mines literally just popped. So that's the worst thing that can happen, Widow Mines. 1 Marine runs on in here. Saturated third base is the start, if you can tell, but really wanted to see the gas count. And seeing that no 5th and 6th still doesn't quite confirm the lack of a high gas style, or unit available, I should say. Obviously, it's not a style, if it's not 6 gases, but you could still, I think, off of 4 gases, get to Archons, for instance, with your Zealots. Seeing that it is still only on 3, and the Robo is only just finishing, that really means it's quite heavy on the Zealots. It's going to change eventually. Clem knows that, and will be appropriately cautious against the mass Zealots that could be here right now. But that is the narrow, I guess, timing that Clem really wants to hit, is just after Creator stops dedicating to a bunch of Zealots, hella Zealots, and before he actually has Splash. If Clem can hit that timing, then Clem could actually win with it, but again, easier said than done. Especially with a Warp Prism carrying around Zealots for drops, and Zealots able to come in from different directions on the map, and well, that's pretty much it, but those are really annoying things. 3 Cyclones living from the early game will be excellent at stopping Warp Prism harassment. Their lock-on isn't what it used to be, though, so... Oh, I was going to say the Warp Prism might be able to escape, but definitely not in that case. That Warp Prism was just, whoop, right on top of the Cyclones. So easy peasy. 2 Colossus at a time is going to make up for the speed at which Creator got the Colossus, right? So it's 2 immediately, a little bit later. They will not have Exanthermal Lance, they will not have an upgrade, and Clem is actually going to be 2 upgrades ahead of his opponent with a very good Terran army. Widowmine splashing on top of the Zealots, Colossus nowhere in sight. Energy already being used prior to the Colossus joining in is unideal. Hallucination tries to get some friendly fire from the Widowmine, not really effective. Here we go, big pop of Colossus, laser giraffes, here to help. That last force field not doing a whole lot, to be honest, and actually not enough at all. That one Colossus getting jumped on. The Marauders just healing through all of the firepower that Creator can muster, and ultimately Clem taking quite the supply lead. 30 supply ahead as Creator finally gets a warp in, and he will have that upgrade lead for an extended period of time. Creator is nowhere close to getting that second forge. He does have a 4th Nexus, and he did save all of his probes, so I guess maybe he will add a second forge, but the point is, it's still not done yet. Clem is adding on his armory. Could start up 2-2 immediately. In a game where he's actually going to a 4th command center and not just pedal to the metal, I think he will. Sometimes we do see that heavily delayed in certain TvPs, but this one seems like one we'd start that +2. Exactly that. 4th CC, about halfway done. Creator, he is injured, he's bruised, he's battered, but he is alive. He's got particularly those upgrades to make up for. 20 supply deficit isn't too bad if you're appropriately defended up with static defense and a nice concave, or find the Terran in a not concave, I suppose. And that is the trick now, is that Creator has this long horizontal line of bases to defend with very limited map vision. If any of his observers died, he just didn't have a lot of time to build observers. He went right into the Warp Prism, and then I don't think built anything but maybe one observer before going into that double robo and producing the Colossus. So now he can maybe add on more, and that's exactly what he's doing. Also adding on disruptors. So one immortal pops out, I like it, but then back into, or not back into, but primarily into disruptors. Still no second forge, by the way. So Clem is going to have a 2-2 lead. The faster ship weapon upgrades also certainly played a part in that last game. Maybe one in which I should have highlighted a bit more. The fact that Creator was a little surprised by the attack and the amount of Vikings with +2. I mean, that does pack a punch. That doesn't necessarily happen. Sometimes the Terrans are a little bit lazier about the ship weapons, especially if their sights aren't purely on top of the Liberator game. Now we are back into late game TvP by the looks of things. Creator, I would say he would be thankful for that, but he did not win last game, so I don't know. But he doesn't die. Oh god, those EMPs. He doesn't die at his 4th base, which was looking a bit risky. 2-2 is nearly done for Clem. He's coming in from 2 different angles as well, something that Creator might not have picked up on. Now, Creator is going to be able to use some of the chokes of his opponent kind of against him in an ideal world, but there's really not that many disruptors, not that many force fields, and here comes Clem. Everything he's got, and 2-2 finishing as well, trying to split away from some of the disruptors. So far effective. Vikings hitting free shots on top of the Colossus, and soon, the only thing left for Creator is nothing but those gateway units. 1 disruptor here to try and help out. More gateway units coming in, but up against superior upgrades and EMPs and a microable Terran force. I'm not sure that Creator is actually going to do very much with this. I'm getting some type of callback to the last game. A massively different visual situation. Clearly, Clem has a big ball of bio, and he is clearly microing it. But once again, Creator might be thinking that he can bite off more than he can actually chew. His eyes are bigger than his stomach, so on and so forth. But he doesn't want to lose this position. If he loses this position, oh my god, the disruptor! If he loses this position, then Clem's going to feel very confident about running after him. And if he runs after him, Clem will shortly be at Creator's 4th base, which I'm not sure he can actually defend. He needs disruptors on the front lines. He needs these engagements to go better, but the upgrades are really working against him. A couple of Widow Mines also helping. The EMPs, once again, instrumental to depleting the Zealot's health. The disruptor is going to get a shot. No, it's not. Oh, I thought that was the one that was alive. Oh, boy, it wasn't. Good focus fire there from Clem. I mean, Clem is making this look like the toughest thing in the world. That sounds like a weird backhanded compliment, but this is looking like one of the toughest things in the world, and I feel like it actually should be easy, so kudos to Creator is really how I should be saying here. Kudos to Creator. He is on a basic gateway army for the most part that is out-upgraded and very Zealot dependent. Only a couple of disruptors coming in every so often, and he has actually made Clem work hella hard to not die. So freaking hard. But Clem has not died. And Clem is continuing to gain upgrade advantages with 3-3 on the way compared to Creator's single forge only at work. The Disruptor is going to become even more critical to Creator's success if he succeeds, as they will go ahead and ignore all those upgrades. Oh boy, during all of that, Clem grabbed a 5th base. Creator also grabbed a 5th base, but I think it was a little bit later to saturating it, very quickly grabbing a 6th though. I think that's a nice thing to do, and he might get away with it. I'm not so sure, though. That double drop could be looking for a surround, could be looking for a run-by. It is going to be a run-by. An effective one by the looks of things. There is a recall available, but will it happen in time? That is a decent amount of bio with +2 attack. Yes, it will, because the rest of the army was actually in position, and Creator even jumping on top of this army to try and get the maximum amount of punish. And that means that the left side might be open, and guess what? No more recall. That was a little bit of a bait and switch right there. Creator was trying to anticipate this to a certain degree. The army is already moving on over, but it is very, very late to this. Guardian Shield actually will be active, funnily enough. And the Robo army is now coming, but no shield battery, and the Disruptor is going to have a tough time chasing down the bio. They are trying, but they are being split against, they are being run away against, and they will soon be out of ammo if Creator isn't careful. He's also still dealing with the attack on the right side, but he is dealing with this about as well as I would expect for a man in his position. A bit late to both sides. This is a difficult situation indeed, and he will unfortunately lose at least one of the Nexus. We'll save most of the probes, however, and we'll save a lot of the expensive, slow-building units, so he's down, but certainly not out. Clem has found himself in a base lead, technically a worker lead, an army lead, an upgrade lead, and he's moving on to Liberators 3 at a time with +2 ship weapons finishing. This is the worst position a Protoss can find themselves in without straight up being dead. On the back foot, limited income, no mobility, and Liberators about to appear on your side of the map. That is terrifying. And Clem just wants to keep this up, basically. If he can continue to find Creator hold up in his high ground first 3 bases, those Liberators will be so freaking good. It'll be the easiest game. The Creator is determined not to let that happen. Does break out onto the map a little bit more, hoping to catch some of these Liberators before they siege up. There's not that many of them right now, so this seems very doable. Most of the army, in fact, is really in medevacs as the bio gets split a little bit. The Disruptors trying to still find engagements, but they're also on the front line getting torn down. Vikings eventually going to tear down these Colossus as well. The Colossus did do a decent job trying to trade out, but not good enough, especially because of the upgrades. 2-1 Colossus trying to burn down a 3-3 bio underneath approximately 10 medevacs. Just was not going to happen. And Creator will falter here against Clem. Put up one hell of a fight. Forced Clem to play a different style than he usually does. I think Protoss in general have been doing that to the guy. But will fall. And Clem will move on to face the winner of Estrella versus Bjorn.